No one noticed her pain, because she never allowed it to be seen. Every morning before the sun rose, she was already awake, sitting on the edge of her thin mattress, tying the loose ends of her dupatta, whispering a silent prayer that no one could hear. The room was small, the walls cracked and the ceiling leaked whenever the rain came. Yet, this broken space was all she had left to call home. Her name was Amina. Life had never been kind to her. But she had learned early that kindness was not something life owed anyone. It was something people gave or withheld. Without warning, she stood quietly and looked at her children sleeping on the floor beside her. 3 small bodies, wrapped in worn blankets, breathing softly. In their sleep, they looked peaceful, free from the worries that crushed her chest. Every waking moment she smiled faintly. That smile was her armor. Home built on silence. Amina's days were hard, but her nights were harder. During the day, she could distract herself. There was work to do, food to arrange, clothes to wash, neighbors to avoid. But at night, when the world slept and silence filled the room, her thoughts became louder than any noise. She remembered the life she once had. There was a time when she believed she would never be alone. She had trusted love. Her husband had promised her a future, spoken in gentle words and painted dreams. But promises, she learned too late, were easier to make than to keep. One day he left. No fight, no explanation, no goodbye. He went far away, chasing another life, another woman, another happiness that did not include his children or the wife who had stood beside him through hunger and hardship. People told Amina to be strong, but no one told her how. Mother before a woman. From that day on, Amina stopped being a woman with dreams. She became only a mother. Every morning she stepped out of the house before her children woke up. She worked wherever work was available, cleaning homes, washing dishes, stitching torn clothes for a few coins. Some days she was paid, some days she was not. But every day she came home with tired hands and a determined heart. Her children never knew how many times she had gone to bed hungry so they could eat. They never knew how often she walked home with blistered feet, counting every step, praying she wouldn't collapse before reaching the door. She never complained. She never cried in front of them. When her children asked, "Ami, are you tired?" she always answered with the same words, "No, my child, I am fine." But she was not. The nights that broke her quietly at night, after her children slept, Amina allowed herself to feel. She sat in the darkness, her back against the wall, knees pulled close to her chest. Her eyes would wander to the empty space beside her, where a partner should have been, where support should have existed. Tears came silently. She covered her mouth so no sound escaped. She cried for the woman she used to be. She cried for the future she was promised. She cried for her children, growing up too fast in a world that was not gentle. Sometimes, exhaustion won. She would fall asleep sitting upright, her body aching, her heart heavier than her tired bones. The world that judges quietly. People talked. They always did. She is unlucky. She couldn't keep her husband. Her children will suffer because of her fate. Number 2. One asked her story. No one saw her sacrifices. They did not see her walking miles under the burning sun. They did not see her hands shaking from weakness as she cooked at night. They did not see the fear in her eyes when rent day came closer. Society judged her loudly while she suffered silently. A child who watched closely, her eldest son, Yusuf, noticed more than she realized. He saw how his mother's smile faded when she thought no one was watching. He noticed how she pretended not to be hungry. He heard her quiet prayers late at night. One evening, as she stitched clothes under a dim bulb, Yusuf sat beside her. "Ami," he said softly, "when I grow up, you won't have to work anymore." Her hands paused. She looked at him, her eyes filling, but she quickly blinked the tears away. "My son," she whispered, placing a hand on his head, "just be a good human. That is enough." But deep inside, those words became her strength. The silent battle continues. Amina's days grew heavier. Prices rose. Work became scarce. Her body grew weaker. Yet every morning she stood up again, because mothers like Amina do not fight loud battles. They fight silent ones. They do not scream their pain. They bury it inside and keep going. And though the world never applauded her courage, her story was being written quietly, painfully, lovingly in every sacrifice she made. Her days were hard. Her nights were harder, and her battle was far from over. The hardest battles are not fought with fists or words. They are fought in silence inside the heart. Amina woke up that morning with pain spreading through her body like fire. Her back ached, her hands trembled, and her head felt heavy, as if it carried the weight of years instead of hours. Still, she pushed herself up from the mattress before her children stirred. There was no choice. Pain did not excuse a mother from responsibility. She washed her face with cold water, looked at her reflection in the cracked mirror, and barely recognized herself. Her eyes had lost their shine. Fine lines marked her face, not from age, but from worry. She whispered, "Just one more day. Give me strength for one more day." A day without enough that day. Work was scarce. 2 houses turned her away politely. One woman said she already had help. Another said she couldn't afford to pay. Amina nodded each time, lowering her eyes, hiding the fear rising in her chest. By noon, the sun burned fiercely, and her stomach cramped with hunger. She had eaten nothing since the night before, but hunger was something she had learned to ignore. She counted the coins in her pocket. Not enough. Not even close. Her thoughts went straight to her children. What would she cook tonight? What would she say if they asked for more? She swallowed hard and kept walking. A small lie to protect innocence that evening. She returned home with a small bag of flour and a few vegetables bought with borrowed money. Her daughter smiled when she saw her. "Ami, you came early today." Amina forced a smile back. "Yes, my child." She cooked quietly while the children talked among themselves, unaware of the storm inside her heart. When food was served, she placed the plates in front of them but sat aside. "Aren't you eating, Ami?" Yusuf asked. "I already ate." She lied softly. She watched the meat, counting every bite, praying it would be enough. Her hunger was sharp, but the sight of her children eating brought her a strange comfort and a deeper pain. That night, she drank water and told her body to be patient. The night that felt endless when darkness fell. Sleep did not come easily. The house was quiet, but her mind was loud. She worried about rent. She worried about school fees. She worried about her health. What would happen if she became too weak to work? The thought terrified her more than hunger ever could. She turned to her side, careful not to wake the children, and let a tear slip onto the pillow. Then another, and another. Her chest tightened. She pressed her hand against it, breathing slowly, afraid that even her heartbeat might disturb the fragile peace of the night. "No one must know," she whispered to herself. "No one." When the body can't keep up, days passed, each one heavier than the last. Amina's steps slowed. Her hand shook more often. Her vision blurred when she stood too fast. One afternoon, while cleaning a neighbor's house, her knees suddenly weakened. She grabbed the edge of a table just in time to keep herself from falling. The woman noticed. "You don't look well," she said. "I'm fine," Amina replied automatically. Those words had become her habit, her shield, her lie. But that day her body disagreed. She finished the work somehow, collected her payment, and walked home slowly, each step painful, each breath shallow. Halfway home, she had to stop. She leaned against a wall, closed her eyes, and for the first time in years, allowed herself to feel fear. Not for herself, for her children. A son who saw the cracks. Yusuf noticed the change. He saw how his mother moved slower. He noticed how she held her back. He heard her coughing at night. One evening, he brought her a glass of water without being asked. "Ami," he said carefully, "you should rest." She looked at him surprised. "I will rest later," she said when he asked quietly. She had no answer. That night, after everyone slept, Yusuf stayed awake, staring at the ceiling. His heart felt heavy in a way a child's heart should never feel. He made a silent promise to himself. The moment she almost fell, the breaking point came on a rainy evening. The streets were wet, the sky dark, and Amina was late returning home. Her body felt weak, her head spinning. As she climbed the steps to her house, her vision blurred and suddenly, the world tilted. She collapsed. For a moment, everything went dark. When she opened her eyes, Yusuf was kneeling beside her, his face pale with fear. He cried, "Ami, please wake up." She tried to speak, but her voice was weak. "I'm here," she whispered. Tears streamed down Yusuf's face. He held her hand tightly, as if letting go might make her disappear. That night, for the first time, Amina realized something terrifying. Her strength was not endless, a mother's greatest fear lying awake later. Her children asleep beside her, Amina stared into the darkness. She was not afraid of pain. She was not afraid of struggle. She was afraid of failing them. "What will they do without me?" she whispered. That question haunted her more than any hunger, any insult, any lonely night. Her days were becoming unbearable. Her nights were stealing what little strength she had left. And somewhere deep inside, a storm was building, one that would soon change everything. Some promises are made with words, others are made in silence inside a child's heart. After the night Amina collapsed, nothing felt the same. She tried to return to her routine, but her body betrayed her. Every movement reminded her that she was no longer as strong as before. Still, she smiled. Still, she said she was fine. Still, she hid her pain behind gentle words, but Yusuf was watching. Children who grow up in hardship learn to read silence better than words. He noticed how his mother paused to catch her breath. He noticed how she sat down more often. He noticed how she pretended to sleep early so she wouldn't have to answer questions. That night, Yusuf lay awake again. His mother's cough echoed softly in the room, and something inside him shifted. A decision too heavy for a child. The next morning, Yusuf did not go out to play. Instead, he walked to a nearby shop where boys a little older than him worked, lifting boxes, cleaning floors, running errands. He stood there quietly, his heart pounding. The shopkeeper looked at him. "How old are you?" "Old enough," Yusuf replied, though his voice trembled. The man studied him for a moment, then sighed. "You'll get tired." "I won't," Yusuf said quickly. By noon, his hands hurt. By afternoon, his back ached. But he did not complain. When the shopkeeper handed him a few coins at the end of the day, Yusuf stared at them as if they were gold. He ran home. At mother's heart knows Amina was cooking when Yusuf returned. She looked up and froze. His clothes were dusty. His hands were dirty. His eyes held something new, something heavy. Where were you? She asked softly. Why us? You have hesitated. Then he placed the coins in her palm. I worked, he said, for you. The room went silent. Amina's fingers closed around the coins, then slowly opened again as if they burned her skin. No, she whispered. No, Yusuf. Tears filled her eyes. You are a child, she said, her voice shaking. This is not your burden. But you're tired, Ami, he replied, his voice breaking. And I can't watch you suffer anymore. Her knees weakened. She sat down, pulling him into her arms. For the first time in years, Amina cried loudly, not from pain but from love mixed with guilt, the price of love. From that day on, Yusuf worked after school. Amina protested at first. She begged him to stop. She reminded him of his studies, his future, his childhood, but Yusuf was stubborn just like her. I'm not leaving you alone, he said. Every coin he earned went into her hands. Every night, Amina prayed over him while he slept, her fingers brushing his head gently. Forgive me, she whispered. Forgive me for the life I couldn't give you. Her daughters noticed too. They helped more at home, spoke less, laughed quieter as if afraid that noise might break what little peace they had. A world still unkind despite their efforts. Life did not suddenly become easy. Some days Yusuf returned home exhausted. Some days the shop had no work. Some days Amina's pain returned stronger than before. Neighbors whispered again. Why is the boy working? His mother should stop him. Children shouldn't carry adult responsibilities. Their words hurt, but Amina had learned long ago that the world judged without understanding. They did not see the nights when she held Yusuf's hands, massaging the blisters gently. They did not hear the prayers she whispered with every breath. They did not feel the shame she carried in her heart. A quiet hope begins one evening. As they shared a simple meal, Yusuf spoke softly. One day he said, I will build you a house with strong walls. You won't have to worry about rain or rent. Amina smiled through tears. I don't need a big house, she said. I just need to see you happy. But in her heart, a small flame of hope flickered. Perhaps this suffering was not meaningless. Perhaps this pain was shaping something stronger. Perhaps their silent battle would one day be rewarded. That night, Amina slept a little more peacefully for the first time in a long while. She did not feel completely alone. Her days were still hard. Her nights were still heavier than words could describe. But now, beside her silent struggle, stood a child with a promise too big for his age and a love powerful enough to carry them both. Sometimes, life does not change suddenly. It changes quietly after testing how much a heart can endure. The months passed slowly. Amina's strength returned in small pieces. Never fully, but enough for her to keep going. Yusuf continued working after school, his childhood slipping away one tired evening at a time. The girls learned responsibility far too early, folding clothes, cooking simple meals, and speaking softly as if silence itself could protect their home. They survived, not because life became kind, but because love refused to give up the day she couldn't hide it anymore. One afternoon, while working at a new house, Amina felt dizzy again. This time, she did not have the strength to pretend. Her vision blurred. Her hands dropped the broom. She sat down slowly, her chest rising and falling unevenly. The woman of the house noticed. You're not okay, she said firmly. Don't say you are. Amina tried to smile, but it failed her for the first time. She did not say the word fine. I am tired, she admitted quietly. Those 3 words carried years of pain. The woman sat beside her, listening, not interrupting, not judging, and slowly, piece by piece, Amina's story came out. Not dramatically, not with anger, just truth. A mother abandoned, children depending on fragile strength, nights filled with fear. When Amina finished, she lowered her eyes, ashamed of her tears. But the woman held her hand. You are not weak, she said. You are exhausted. A door opens. Slowly words spread softly, respectfully, not as gossip, but as understanding. A neighbor helped her find steadier work that was lighter on her body. Another offered used clothes for the children. Someone paid a school fee quietly. Without asking for thanks, no one made a big announcement. They simply helped. Amina was overwhelmed, not because she wanted charity, but because kindness had arrived when she had almost forgotten it existed that night. She thanked God longer than usual. A mother's fear returns, but hope always comes with fear. What if this doesn't last? Amina wondered. She had learned not to trust good days too easily. One evening, Yusuf returned home later than usual. His face was pale, his steps slow. What happened? Amina asked, panic rising. He sat down, heavily. The shopkeeper said he doesn't need me anymore, he said, quietly. The words hit her harder than any illness. Guilt flooded her chest. This is my fault, she whispered. You should never have had to work. Yusuf shook his head. No, he said firmly. This was my choice. But that night, Amina cried again, this time. Not in silence. A test of faith. The next few weeks were difficult. Money was tight again. Yusuf searched for work. Amina prayed harder. Yet something inside her had changed. She no longer felt invisible. People greeted her with warmth. Her children were treated with kindness. The world slowly had begun to see her. One evening, A teacher from Yusuf's school visited. "Your son is bright," she said. "He nearly left school because of work. That would have been a loss." Amina's heart trembled. "We're arranging support," the teacher continued, "so he can stay in school." Amina couldn't speak. Tears streamed down her face as she held the teacher's hands, her gratitude too deep for words. A mother's silent victory begins that night. Amina sat beside her sleeping children, watching their faces carefully, just as she used to. When they were younger, she realized something important. Her battle had never been about survival alone. It had been about dignity, about raising children with values, even when life tried to break her, about loving quietly, endlessly. Her days were still hard, her nights still carried worry, but now there was light at the edge of the darkness, and Amina, the woman who fought silently for years, finally allowed herself one small belief. Maybe her suffering had not been in vain. Some victories are not loud. They arrive quietly, wrapped in patience, prayer, and pain. Years passed. Not suddenly, not icily, but slowly. The way healing always comes. Amina grew older. The lines on her face deepened, her hair turned gray, and her body never fully recovered from the years of exhaustion. But something else changed too. Her home felt warmer. Her nights felt less frightening. Her heart, though scarred, felt lighter. Yusuf stayed in school. He studied with the same determination he once used to survive. Every late night with books replaced the late evenings at the shop. Every exam he passed felt like another brick laid in the future his mother had dreamed of but never asked for. Amina watched quietly, always quietly. The day she didn't expect, one morning, Yusuf asked her to get ready. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Just come," he replied with a smile she didn't recognize. Confident.com grown. They stood in a modest office later that day. Amina sat nervously, her hands folded in her lap, her heart racing like it used to during her hardest years. When Yusuf's name was called, he stood up. The words that followed felt unreal. A job, a stable income, a future earned through sacrifice. Amina's vision blurred. She didn't clap. She didn't speak. She just closed her eyes and cried. Not the quiet tears she had mastered over the years, but full, honest tears. A son's gratitude. That evening, Yusuf placed something in her hands. It was not expensive. It was not grand, but it was hers. "A place where you can rest," he said softly. "No more moving, no more fear." Amina touched the walls of the small home later that night, as if they might disappear. She sat down slowly, feeling something unfamiliar. Safety. For the first time in decades, she slept without fear of tomorrow. The words she never heard days later. Yusuf spoke words she had waited a lifetime to hear, though she never demanded them. "Ami," he said, his voice thick with emotion, "everything I am is because of you." Amina shook her head gently. "I only did what mothers do," she replied. But Yusuf knew the truth. She had done far more. She had fought days no one saw. She had survived nights no one understood. She had sacrificed herself silently. Her silent battle ends. Amina's health remained fragile, but her heart was finally at peace. She sat in the evenings watching her children laugh. Free laughter. The sound filled the home like light. Sometimes she would look up at the sky and whisper a quiet prayer, not for herself, but in gratitude. Her days had been hard. Her nights had been harder, but her battle had not been meaningless. A message for the world: mothers like Amina walk among us unnoticed. They do not demand appreciation. They do not ask for sympathy. They give, they endure. They love silently, and often only when it is too late. The world realizes some heroes never raise their voices, some battles are never spoken, and some sacrifices can never be repaid. This was a mother's silent battle, and she won without ever asking for applause.